Okay, I am a bit behind on my post, but trying to change to this new format. So I'll just condense what happened last week. Well, on Monday, we did an exercise where we got into groups of three, had a discussion on our problems, and the other two gave us suggestions for solutions. My group kind of changed things a little bit. We ended up not so much actually taking turns. We just kind of discussed our problems and then moved on to possible solutions, and then we moved on to another problem, came back. It was more a discussion. Nobody took turns like I meant to. We didn't pay attention to the clock. We originally started off with 4 people until we got whittled down to 3 to balance out the groups. So and we went through our problems pretty quickly. Like, for instance, me and one other person, Robert, I believe his name is, we both had the same sort of problem, which is after the mock-ups we did the week before, we had to wait for a group. We were moving too far ahead. We had ideas for final design, but we couldn't really do anything with them because we needed a group, because it is a group project. So yeah, so that's what happened there. So Tuesday we moved on and actually made our groups. Not the easiest thing in the world for me. I'm not exactly, my social skills are not the greatest. I definitely rely on the fake it till you make it in some respects, and have trouble associating with strangers. In fact, being in this conversation with a stranger is easier than trying to make a group with effectively strangers still. I take a bit longer to warm up to people, but I ended up making a group of who was left. We couldn't find a group. I either couldn't find a group for multiple reasons. My biggest problem with that was for not finding a group is I had data set to do with honeybees, beehive numbers in New Zealand. It is sustainability based, but there wasn't really many people doing something similar. Even if you break down the food types, and I didn't want to do a depressing topic or data set, so I've done the whole data dive before. There's no need to get really depressed on it. So and then we spent the rest of the time trying to find common grounds. We were meant to look at finding data sets, but we were busy studied for our coding test the next day. So and then we get to Wednesday, and after the test everyone was kind of drained. We had done no work the night before to do with our project. Not surprising. I did try and direct it a little bit. We kind of seem to have a little trouble finding direction, and so we started prototyping. Trying to prototype ideas, try and find confirm the data set. Sangita briefly tried to help us with that. Then we looked at my one and actually found out there was more than just beehive numbers. There was honey production, honey exports, beeswax exports, just actual packaged bee exports and queen bee exports, which is quite a large data set since some of it is from 1980 to 2018, so 38 years for some of it. But that's a decent data set, and so we stuck with that and tried to come up with ideas and made a Discord channel so we can actually chat, which is different than a Facebook group that I had with my last project. So we could chat and keep in touch. Haven't really worked out so far. We'll put stuff in it, but yeah. And then come Thursday we're looking at. I brought up the idea of a honey spoon. Then after we had an object that we could kind of agree with, and it was related to the topic, which I thought is the idea for a common day object. It has to be relatable to the topic of our data set that we chose, and we ran into trouble trying to apply data to it to change the design. It was a bit difficult. So I spent the rest of the lesson, even though I left early, mapping out the different places we could put the data. So the picture on the blog will not be very clear, so you can't read it, the individual numbers, but there was like the width of each kind of ring. There was the width, the thickness, the same for the gaps in between. The actual handle, the width, the length, the overall length of the whole thing, even the actual radius of the radius instead of width. So we'll go with radius of the rings and the actual handle. So I was I kind of took it a little bit upon myself to try and map the data somehow, and kind of left it to me. Didn't really do it on Friday. I did it over the weekend because I had work, which very limited amount of work or volunteering really. So I managed to convert the data. So slow but eventful, since the mapping the data was the biggest issue. But yeah,